Hi, come on in.
And join in. It's the Very Merry Life. Hi, I'm Mary Hendricks, and you might know me as that relatable AF Mama over on Instagram who hopefully feels like an old friend at this point. And if not, it won't be long till it feels that way as we get raw, unfiltered, and very unapologetic in all things motherhood, marriage, sex, and more. From moments worth savoring to moments worth surviving, get ready to leave feeling seen and supported. You have a friend here now, so hey, take a seat. What's going on? All right. Hi, Shelby.
Hi.
Hi, I am so excited. So everyone that is joining in, I have Shelby Christensen joining me today. She's from Instagram. And if you've been following, The Very Merry Life and you've been listening to the podcast, the big thing with The Very Merry Life is connecting real life moms and talking real life things. And, I have people like, I try to bring on guests of every type of background. And I think sometimes we just need to hear like real voices. And that's exactly what we're going to get today. And we're going to talk, I guess it's a taboo subject. Not really. Kind of, because we're going to do it for Taboo Tuesday, is mom friends or the lack thereof. Mom friends. Because
the lack thereof.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the taboo nature of it, is the lack of friendships or how they change in motherhood, and it's nuts. But before we get into any of that, I want you to introduce yourself, say hello, and we'll go.
All right. Well, hello. Just like what Mary said, I'm Shelby, and I live in Washington, clear on the other side of the United States from Mary.
Yep.
But I've been a follower of Mary's, I think, since the beginning. It was like 2020, like right when the world shut down. I think I found you, or we got connected.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm married. I've been married for, oh my gosh, when did we get married? Almost 6 years. We've been together for almost 7 years, but married for almost 6 years. And when I got married, I became a stepmom. Overnight, I got 2 kids. And then we have Bailey, our 3.5-year-old. So Lily's turning 9 this Wednesday. Joseph is 7 and Bailey is 3.5. So yeah, and then I work full-time as a physical therapist assistant. I work outside of the home in a physical therapy clinic. And yeah, that's my life.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that whole stepmom dynamic is probably a learning curve, I would imagine, just because you have to figure out that whole, it's a relationship. It's no different relationship, but especially just because you have multiple parties attached to it.
Yes, it is. You're always learning. It's never a completed learning.
No.
Yeah.
No. Well, I actually just talked about that today because on TikTok, it was a video I did, a reel, and it was a reel of Haley, my youngest, in her crib. And I have crib bumpers on, and there are these crib bumpers that I bought on Amazon that are marketed as breathable, safe bumpers. And since she's been running her heads into the side when she's sleeping and her feet are getting caught, I put them on thinking, oh, they're safe. And then someone on TikTok kind of like did a video stitching mine saying like, hey, like that is not safe at all. So it was fine. But I responded back to her and people were like, because I could care less. And I was just like, I'm always learning. You're always learning. Like I'm a mom of 3, but you're still freaking learning every single second. You don't figure it out. We're doing the best we can with what we know today.
Yeah, it never ends. There's no instruction manual for motherhood, for parenthood, nothing.
No. I wish. Yeah. I would wonder what that would even look like had there wouldn't be one. There'd be like multiple volumes.
I feel like we would all look like robots.
Well, no, yeah. Well, that's the thing.
We would all be the same.
Well, and I think that's what people forget sometimes. It's like they think that motherhood is like automatic. It's like we're an automatic, and it's not that way. If you're going to think about cars, it's like we're not just going one direction. A lot of us are going like this and doing different things, and sometimes we have to go backwards in order to go forwards. And but
yep.
Well, let's get into the mom friend chat because
let's do this.
No. Well, okay. So, how many friends do you have? Let's just kick it off.
What do you consider friends?
That's a good question. That's actually a really good question because nowadays it's actually changed. But let's start with what we think of friends, which would be someone in person that you see frequently and have a close relationship with. I think like a good friend, like someone that you can confide in and actually open up to and things like that.
To see, like seeing physically. So, being in Washington. So I didn't grow up here. We moved here a few years ago. About 5 years ago, we moved here. And so up until the last 2 years, probably, I don't think I would have considered myself having any friends here.
Yeah.
There's, here and there a couple of people, that, I connected with, but like we didn't get together regularly. So now I would say I have, 2 or 3 maybe locally in this area that I would consider like friends that I would confide in. And it's taken a lot to get there. And it's been a hard journey.
And do they also have kids?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's like, and that's why I also asked, so for me, I have like 2 of my like closest friends ever. Both of them do not have kids, and I rarely ever see them. One's actually in the National Guard, and she's been gone since October. So I haven't seen her in forever, but, and then the other friend of mine, she lives in Philadelphia, so 2.5 hours away. Before that, she was in Rhode Island. I'm in New Jersey. So we only see each other when we see each other randomly. And it's one of those friendships when you get together, it's as if no time has passed, but they don't have children.
Yes.
And that's like just a different layer of stuff, obviously. But we were together this past summer, and on like a vacation. We all kind of took like a vacation together where they go up to the same place that my parents have a beach house. And I brought my kids with, and it was the worst vacation I've ever been on in my entire life. And not because of them, it was just because they were doing things that they can do without kids. But I had 3 kids that I would have to sit back with. And it's hard. It's hard when they're not on the same level. It's
same level, like in your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually remember I got married later in life.
Okay.
I was, so I have a church community that I belong to, and in our religion, it's been like custom or culture or whatever you want to say to like get married young. Yeah. And I didn't get married young. I went to school. I was trying to get that started. And so I got married later in life. I was 27 when I got married, but a lot of my friends all got married early and all had kids early. And so I was that friend too. Like I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. And so when I was in that stage, I told myself, oh, I'm not going to let my kids like dictate how I live my life. I don't, you have those thoughts.
Oh yeah.
But then like you become a mom and you're like, okay. So this is what they meant. Like you literally, like your life changes, your dynamics change. And like the things that you could do before, you have to think of your kids first.
Oh yeah.
And so it's a totally,
well, and I think like the hard part for me, and I ended up talking to my friends about it, because I think I was in the thick of postpartum during it, but one of the other things too, and not that they had ever noticed or anything, was I sometimes didn't get an invite, and it killed me. And it wasn't like I couldn't go. It's not like I could go. So it made sense as to why I don't get an invite, but for some reason it stabbed me in the heart. I was like, I had a pity party for myself while I was up there, I think, because I was like, oh God, like you just realize how much your life has shifted the moment you are. It's a glorious shift, no kidding, but it's like, ooh, it's a lot sometimes. Yeah. But and
it's a lot.
It is. And that's the thing with like mother, and I've talked about like mom friends before on Instagram and stuff like that, just because it is a thing that I think a lot of us relate to. I don't feel like a lot of people want to talk about it. That's what's probably taboo about it, is that a lot of us don't want to talk about it, because sometimes when you joke and say like, I don't have any friends, like it's not a fun feeling. And I think a few of us, like, we don't want to say it, because if we say it, then it's true. And then it kind of hurts a little bit more. Or on the flip side, it's not a pretty part of motherhood. Like, this isn't the prettiest portion of motherhood. And we don't want to scare people. I don't want people to come here and be like, oh, I'm going to have a baby and I'm going to lose my friends. That's not the case. It's just that things are going to change. And this is like the season of life, especially because we have little ones. I think that's a big difference. I'll be curious to see how things change as my kids get older. and more freedom opens up and more opportunity to be flexible. And like school is going to do major things, I would imagine, just because meeting parents.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Eye-Opening Moments podcasts are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And especially as parents with little kids, like, I mean, I think it can also be like the thought of getting my kids into the car and getting ready and going somewhere is like super exhausting already. And then when you add like having to like wanting to meet up with friends who also have little kids, and then everybody gets together, and sometimes it's just like chaos.
Yeah.
Like, we went and saw one of our friends that I have here. She's got 3 kids, and one of her sons is Bailey's age, and they're really close. Like they love playing with each other. But when we got together, I think it was last week. It was like last weekend. All the kids did was fight, and it was just like miserable. And like they wanted to just be around us, and we're like, no, we got you guys together to go away so we can have some adult time. But like it didn't happen, and we ended up leaving, and it was just like a whole fiasco. But so I think that too, like it can be just like mentally like exhausting to like want to get together with people. So that I think motherhood is lonely already, and then when you add that like thought process into it, it's like it's hard. It's really hard.
One more relationship to nurture, where it's like for me, and I know like my problem, and I've thought about this before, like I've met another mom in like my development stuff, and she's wonderful, but we hardly get together because nap times. I have nap times to contend with. I only have Haley napping right now, but still it's twice a day. And I only get like a 2.5 hour wake window between those 2 times. And yes, and I've had people before on Instagram say like, you got to be flexible and bring them out. Like, yes, I do. But then I end up paying the price. Like sometimes that flexibility just doesn't exist. She's 3rd child, so she has to be flexible. But there are other moments where I want that control. Like I want to know that routine is there and things like that. So we have nap times. And then when we do get together, because her son is in between Spencer and Cassidy's age, so she's 5, Spencer's 3, so he's 4. It is a cluster F. So when we're together trying to talk in the kitchen, we're getting pulled, or we're yelling, or we're telling the kids not to throw toys at each other, or we're chasing them around to make sure they don't run away. Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. That's real life. Again, real life. Real mom life. But that's the hard part, is like you want to get together with these friends, but forget it.
Yeah.
Or it's like this. It's like this. It's like this.
I'm talking with my friend Mary. Can you say hi really quick?
Hi, Bailey.
She says hi. Okay, babe. Huh?
For real?
Yeah, she's real.
For real. Yes, I'm here.
It's for real. Okay. All right. I'll be down in a few minutes. Okay. Can you close mommy's door? Thank you.
No, we'll be fast. But oh no, I love it. Again, I don't care about any of that stuff because real life, and we're not trying to tailor anything here. But that's again, like that's a perfect example. It's like you want to have an adult conversation, you want to have a serious moment, but then you have little ones asking for a snack and things like that. And it's exhausting to do that. And not to mention, like when I get free time, I don't want to spend it with anyone else. Like I don't even want to spend it with my husband sometimes, where I'm like, I need time for me, just by myself, to sit in a car. Sometimes I don't even want the radio on. I'll drive in absolute silence so no one else is talking to me. And it's hard because it's just, then you feel bad. You feel guilty because you want friendships. You want these people to confide in. But yeah, you need a friend who's comfortable with like not getting a text message back or getting the text message replied to like a few weeks later or days later, and not seeing each other every so often, because that's what it's got to be sometimes.
Yes, completely agree. That is Yes.
You know. Yeah. So there's that. And then what other aspect of mom friendship? Oh, social media. So obviously you're on social media. Do you feel like social media has helped you with that aspect of mom friendship?
Actually, yes. I feel like, well, yeah, because like when the world shut down, so for me, I mean, my life never really changed with 2020 and the whole COVID thing. I mean, we're in Washington, we got shut down hardcore.
Yeah.
But I'm in healthcare, so I still went to work.
Yeah.
So I kind of got like that social aspect of it, but like nobody was getting together and the parks were like caution taped off. We couldn't go to the parks, couldn't do anything. And so that's when like I started like finding connection on social media, and it really helped. There was a group, there was four of us that actually connected really strongly, and like we took it to texting, and we were like texting all day every day during that whole time, and it was so nice, like just to have people to connect with. We FaceTimed a couple of times, not very much, but because we were all in different time zones. But yeah, social media like seriously was a godsend to me.
Well, and I think that's why so many people came on. Like, I know for me, that's why like my Instagram, I really started putting focus into it, because like, what the hell else was I supposed to do? I mean, aside from the pandemic, it wasn't like I had many others to chat with. I have friends that have kids from like high school days and stuff like that, but I rarely ever see them. I think the last time I saw them was literally right before the pandemic. And even then it's, again, getting together is hard. We don't live nearby. So it's just like figuring that time out. But online, it's like I think what's nice about it is it's kind of like a dating app, but you get on. I'm presenting my parenting style, who I am exactly. And those who relate to that or feel like in some way, it doesn't have to be everything, but you know, for anyone listening, the reason why you're listening most likely is because there's something we connect with, whether it's a parenting technique or something we think is funny. But I think that's nice, because obviously you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I think that's another portion of mom friendship that makes it really, it's like, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, like meeting moms is one of the most awkward experiences ever. I hate it. Like, I sometimes hate it.
It's almost worse than dating.
It is. It's very uncomfortable, because you're getting in this group. I've done like a mom's, like a play group before, and I vowed to never do one ever again, because it was so uncomfortable, where everyone's on eggshells, where you could tell, and everyone's trying to feel each other out. And then they say something and then they draw back real quick, because they're like, oh, they're like lightly trying to see your gauge, to see like, what are you into, type of thing. It's like throwing something out there.
How far can I push this?
Yeah. Before like you give me the judgmental eyes, which I feel like that flies around really quick, but it's just that. And then everyone's comparing their kids, where everyone's like, Johnny started walking at 2 months old. And then you're there and you're like, oh, okay, what's wrong with my kid? And then you say, and then everyone's going back and forth comparing. And then you go home and you're like, oh, God, this sucks.
Well, and that part, I don't even think sometimes that's intentional. I feel like it's just like, you're just kind of like talking your children up and stuff. And then also just like the whole comparison thing is like parent styles. Our parent styles are so different. So like you go to this play date and you're like praying that your child doesn't act out or do something that's going to make you look like a bad mom.
Yeah.
The whole walking on eggshells thing, trying to see like, okay, how perfect of a mom do I have to be accepted by those people? And then it's just like debilitating. It's like,
and I think that's another reason why I've never liked the parenting group stuff, because of that exact reason. Because if my kids act out, I don't necessarily mind when my kids act out. Like, they're kids. And I've come to that like realization of like, kids are kids. My kids are not angels all the time. They're pretty darn good kids. I'm proud to say that my kids are pretty darn good kids, especially get like good school reports on them. So I'm like, good. In the places that you need to act appropriately, good. But that's the only time that I remember like getting together in a play group. And I remember, I think it was Cassidy. did something because she was young. I was already on edge because at the time she was young and she had just been recently diagnosed with a speech delay. So I think I was already in my head as to why that was going on. But then I think she did something, and you're almost upset with your kid now because of the way they acted, which is a very ordinary behavior. And I remember saying to Kevin, I was like, I don't ever want to feel like I need to apologize for my child acting exactly how she should be acting, because I'm embarrassed and because other people make me think that my kid can't act the way that they are. Obviously, if they're rude or like hurtful, then that's a different conversation. But she was just being a kid. I think she was just like bouncing off the walls, and you do what you can, you're keeping them safe, but you know, I refuse to feel bad about it or make her feel bad about it. So it's hard. It's hard.
I completely agree with you on that. I think it's like it's a whole generational thing too. Like we were at a family thing over Thanksgiving, and Bailey was acting out, and I needed to get something from her, and she ran away from me and hid behind the couch.
Yeah.
And somebody in that room said, you need to control your kid. And I was like, she's 3 years old. She's just testing her limits, and I'm not going to go behind the couch and pull her out of there. I'm going to let her come out first, and then I'll sit and talk with her. I was like, she's 3. What do you expect? And this person goes, she has no respect for you. I'm like,
ew, who was this?
Like,
was it like an in-law or was it someone of the older generation? Don't you blink once.
It was a family member. It
Okay,
was younger.
blink
She's younger than me
Oh.
and has no kids.
Well, that would be why.
So
It's always that. Why is that? It's always that really older generation. No hate if you're listening, if you're a part of the older generation, because chances are if you're listening, you're not a part of that. But it's the specific few, and then it's the people without kids. And I hate that. I actually just recently talked about that on another podcast about, like, we were talking about toxic positivity. And then it kind of boiled into us talking about like offering help and things like that, because I'd said my problem with toxic positivity is this idea that, you know, obviously it's like a gaslight, like basically just kind of blankets over your worries, frustrations, stresses, things like that, and just tells you to knock it off because everything's going to be okay. That's toxic positivity. But the thing that I didn't like about it and don't like about it is sometimes people think that that's all they need to do in offering help. Where it's like they see a mom struggling in a grocery store and they're like, "You got this, mom." Okay, well, I would have appreciated if you had just helped me with my bags, but I got it. Like that's the thing with toxic positivity. Sometimes what I don't like is like it's a very easy Band-Aid for people just to throw on there and feel good. Like they feel like they just did something really good for you when really they did nothing. But then we were talking more, and I said my rule of thumb, and I recently did, I should make like a video on Instagram, but I recently did a video on TikTok saying my rule of thumb with offering unsolicited advice is, can you change an action in 5 minutes or less? And someone had said, like, what is an example of that? Like, cause that's great advice, but what is an example? And I said, like, for example, with Bailey, can she change your action of your child? Let's say if Bailey really was like this, you know, or let's take my kids. If my kids were doing that, my kids were really these crazy monsters. You cannot fix that in 5 minutes. That is something that is going to need continuous work. But what can happen, what that family member could have done for you, is try and go in and play with Bailey and try and go distract her some other way. Or I was in a situation once where we were waiting for, it was that vacation that I was mentioning earlier that that was the worst vacation ever. But I was by myself on that one with my friends. Kevin was traveling again, so I was with all 3 kids. I drove 5 hours up to Massachusetts, so we had a 5-hour car ride, and then an hour wait to get on this bus because it was like middle of summer to get on this bus shuttle to the boat to the car to my parents' beach house. That's how crazy it was. And so the kids were tapped out. But they were pretty good. And when we were waiting for the bus, considering it was hot and the line was long, they were starting to get a little peeved. But I'm by myself. I have Haley in a carrier, I have Spencer and Cassidy. And Cassidy started to act out a little bit. And the woman in front of us, she was an elderly woman and a man, she turned around and just started talking to them and then started showing them pictures of animals because it was like a husband and wife, no kids. Like that floored me. No kids, but they were on like this whole excursion from like Canada down to like Florida. So they were taking pictures, and she was like, "Do you mind if I show them pictures of the animals that have seen along the way?" And I was like, "Sure." And she was just showing all the kids all the animals and helping me out tremendously. And it, like, I'll never forget it. She never made me feel bad. She never did anything. She never offered advice or anything. She just stepped in, and that was something she could fix in 5 minutes. So I always say that. I'm like,
yeah, she helped shift the energy.
But other than that, like anything that's going to take more than 5 minutes is something that you cannot do unless you are planning on coming to my house and sitting with my kids and putting in the time. Otherwise, it just is going to make the situation worse. It's going to make the mom feel worse, the parent feel worse. And most likely the outcome for the kids is probably going to be worse because now you have a cranky, stressed, frustrated mom or dad who feels like a failure, and that's going to impact the rest of their parenting. So it's like
100%.
That's my rule of thumb with that stuff. But for a future family member of Shelby.
Yes. Well, and I'm
5
going
minutes.
through this like journey of like setting boundaries. I don't know how to set boundaries. And so I've been really trying to learn how to set boundaries. And the setting boundaries with family members is like the hardest part for me. And so like at that moment I was like, and I told myself before going on this trip, because I tend to get a little bit of like anxiety going home, just being out of our routine, out of our familiar spaces and everything. Cause I know it's going to be just like chaos. And I told myself on this trip, I'm like, I'm going to set the boundaries, and I'm not going to feel sorry. I'm going to do what's best for me and Bailey. And that's what's going to happen. And when that situation happened, I just like, I kindly said, I was like, that's not very helpful. And I explained what I was going to do with Bailey. And then that family member like completely disagreed with me. And that's when she said, like, your kid has no respect for you, and just like rolled her eyes at me. And I said, okay, I'm done. And Bailey came with me, and we went upstairs, and we actually left. Like, I let my mother know. I was like, I'm going to go. It's time for us to go. Bailey needs a rest. And I just like cut that off before it escalated even worse, before there were any other comments to be said to me to make me feel like a horrible parent. I just left.
Well, and that's awesome on you, because that's hard. Boundaries are hard, and boundaries are uncomfortable. Hence the reason why they're called boundaries, because anytime you get to a point that you can't be at, it's going to feel uncomfortable for you and for the person, more so for the person. Usually people recognize boundaries and they fight back, especially when it's the boundary is against them. But I'm the same exact way. Like, I am the same exact way. Even with like, again, I always will go back to this vacation because I think it was like the first time I am comfortable in my bubble. Like, our house is our bubble. Like, it's where we have our routine, we have everything. And when we get out of our bubble, we are in the view of everyone. So when our kids act out, now everyone else is seeing it. Now, it feels a lot like the microscope is on us when we are out of our bubble. And it's a very, like, I don't like it. I have to prep myself big time for it, because what I found is either you take two routes when that uncomfortable feeling happens. One, you're very laid back, where you are almost like too laid back in the situation, being like, it is what it is. Cause you almost don't want to like even face the uncomfortableness of that bubble bursting. Or it's the opposite, where you're just like, stop it right now, like really on them, and you don't let them touch a single thing. And that's not fun. So I've been working, that's something I'm working on, is just like being okay with people seeing the mess when we're out and about.
That is so hard. It is so hard to do, because I'm right there with you. That is, so we, right when I had Bailey, so I had a friend, well, she's still a friend, but like we don't see each other very often, but she's actually a family member, my husband's cousin, his wife. And she, like, to me, you know, before I realized like there's no such thing as a perfect parent, but she to me like was just like embodied this like perfect mom. Like, she was the equal amounts of like fun and equal amounts of like teaching discipline or like structure, to like, she didn't yell. She just like, she looked like she handled it with complete ease. And when I had Bailey, she, at this point, she had 3 kids. Hers was still, her third one was still really little, but, so we had her come over to our house with her kid. Bailey was, oh my gosh, Bailey was like a few weeks old maybe. And we had Lily and Joseph at our house too. And it was just chaos. And she has 3 boys, and her boys just like kind of just, they're boys. Boys are, to me, boys are just like a totally different breed than girls. And they just kind of came in and got comfortable, felt like home, and it was fine. I was in that postpartum moment of like, overwhelming. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed with everything. There's so much stimulus going on, and I'm trying to like still recover and take care of my infant. And she, hold on just a second. You want me to take that off? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Don't apologize.
Yep. Hold on. Oh, it's stuck on there real good. Oh my goodness. Can we pull this off? She cut her finger yesterday, and so she has a Band-Aid on. There we go.
Oh.
It's all better. Look at it. Look at it. Flip it around. See? Look. Nice.
It's still there.
Yeah, it's still there, but it's not bleeding anymore, so that's good. All right, I'm almost done, okay? I'll be down in a few minutes. But anyway, so the house was just chaos, like pure chaos. And the boys had gotten into like my TV stand had like stuff on there that I didn't want the kids touching, and my kids knew not to touch it, but her kids didn't.
Yeah.
And they got into everything, and like I was just trying to like be calm, and she was so calm, and like the kids started fighting, and she like handled it with ease. She like changed the energy in the room, like playing with the kids and stuff while I'm trying to nurse Bailey. But then when she left, I felt horrible because I was so overwhelmed and overstimulated. I broke down crying, and I was like crying to Chris, like, she's like the perfect mom, and I don't know how to do this. I have Lily and Joseph, and then I have Bailey, and I'm just so overwhelmed, and I can't do this, and parenthood is so hard, and she makes it look so easy. And it was so hard. Like I didn't talk to her for a couple of months. Like I kept my distance from her for a couple of months just because like I felt inferior to her, and it was nothing she did. It was me projecting that stuff out, thinking like she's the perfect mom and I'm horrible at it. And like later when we talked about it, like she opened up to me about struggles she had, and like it was just, anyways, it's just like our perception.
Well, I think that's such like a good point though, because who knows? I mean, that could be a very, very good reason as to why some friendships are kind of, they go silent. Who knows? Like you don't know what someone else is thinking, but I would feel the same exact way if you felt like you could not compete to another mom in a different way. Like we get caught up in the comparison game on social media, and it's far easier because it's every type of mom is in front of our face and we only see snippets. Mm-hmm. But when it's in front of our eyes, it's sometimes hard because like I think on social media we can kind of know now, like if you see snippets, it's picked and chosen. Everything's chosen as to what you're shown on social media. When it comes to real life, sometimes you're just like, you feel like it's like a full face, like in your face. Oh, she's freaking awesome. But then you don't realize there's always something behind closed doors. There's always something behind closed doors.
Exactly. Like, I don't know if when she got to her car after getting her boys down into her car, I don't know how she like felt or like what she thought, like taking a big deep breath, like, oh my gosh, that was a little much. Like, I don't know if that's what she said or whatever, but yeah, that's totally true. Like even in real life, we only see what's in front of us, but we don't see what's happening behind closed doors. And when they're not.
No, we're always comparing our insides. A lot of us are comparing our insides to someone's outside, and we have no idea what that even looks like. And I mean, I think it's a very good reminder, especially like, I mean, this is a deeper conversation, but like that whole celebrity Twitch who, committed suicide not long ago, but I felt like that was actually, I did same with mine. And I talked about it a little bit where I was like, it's a good reminder. Like that's a good reminder that you don't compare your insides to someone's outside because, we look at him, he was a dad and he was happy and dancing with his kids and he had, was financially stable and had a successful career and things like that. Everything you compare with someone else. And then you kind of realize that no, he was struggling like big. And, you just don't know. You don't know. But I think that's actually a really great point because I think that's a big portion of like the mom. I think a lot of it has to do, it obviously depends on your stage of life, but especially in like the formative years of our kids, that's where like this stuff gets really tricky because it is very sensitive. It's a very sensitive time because I feel like when they're teenagers and still like things like that, they're already pretty much formed. Like you're just guiding there and holding their hand on certain things. But
You're just like, I hope I did okay.
yeah, but it's these little years where like everyone likes to bang into you this idea of like you're going to traumatize them, or you're going to screw them up, or you're going to raise little jerks and like things like that. Like that's just constantly in our head. We're always being told of what we're doing wrong and how we're going to screw it up. And no one is ever there to like give us that reassurance outward, like, or otherwise. So for us to like be with someone else in that same stage of life, we're all going to compare, because we're all like, maybe, you know, maybe she's not screwing up her kids, but I am. I think we all assume that we're screwing up our kids at some point.
I saw this post one day. It was, she's a motherhood, she does motherhood stuff, talking about like, you know, emotional stability with parents and kids and emotional regulation. But she said that if you're afraid, she said something about like, there's no way that you can avoid adding some type of trauma to your kid's life at all. Like, she's like, so just do your best and just be okay with what you're doing, and don't let other parents or other experts try to dictate on how you want to do when you feel like what you're doing is best, because your kid is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And she, it was, I don't remember the post exactly, but it just like, I was like, okay. So like, because I'm constantly like that too. We constantly have that information coming at us. Like, I have a certain way that I want to do things, like the way I'm parenting my children. And then like social media and like your friends and society is throwing out different things. And then all of a sudden you're questioning, like, are my choices okay? Are my choices like messing up my child and messing up our relationship and messing up everything? And so I think it's just really important. Like, we have to we have good intuition. Like, we became moms. Nobody can be a better parent to your child than you. Yeah. And so like, when you're going off of like how you're feeling, your intuition, like nobody else should have a say in what you're going to do.
No, not at all. I mean, I always think about that too. I'm always like, how much trauma do my kids need in order to just be funny and not completely messed up? Like, I made a video on TikTok. I didn't put it out though.
Didn't you make a video?
I didn't. I made one. I should do it. I just didn't. I did one, and then I got nervous that because some people are really sensitive about trauma. I'm really sensitive about trauma, where I was like, oh shit, like I don't want people coming at me and being like, how dare you joke about trauma, things like that. But I don't see trauma. Like, I think trauma is such a hot word right now. It's just it's a key phrase that we like to throw out there for everything. But when I think of trauma, and this is like, I typically think of like, I'm always thinking in analogies. Like, I always think of like things in like a different representation, but you have your kids, they're a blank slate. Essentially, you are birthing this child who is their own person. But if you think about it, it's like molding clay. Like, you're constantly going to have to chip away at something. You're going to have to mold things into certain things to create who you are. That's technically trauma. Like, if you're going to impact something in some way, it's trauma, whether it's a bad trauma or a good trauma. And there should be a difference between, like, I actually recently saw something, I forget what they called it, but I think they called it like little trauma and big trauma. Like, big trauma would be like the catastrophic events that happen in a person's life that are just like awful. And little trauma is the stuff that like we do throughout the day that like is going to make an impact on them, and it's going to mold them. It's going to continue to mold them into who they end up being. And it's not all bad. Like, it's not all a bad thing, but we're always constantly, we're comparing our brushstrokes to everyone else's. Like, that's the thing. It's like, if you're going to think of like an artwork project, like you're comparing the way you mold a piece of clay to someone else's molding a piece of clay. Like, we're all doing the great job. It's all going to look the same towards the end. If they are nice human beings. That's the real key.
Yes.
But yeah,
no, I really like that little trauma and big trauma. I really like that perspective.
Yeah. It's like some stuff is nasty. I mean, obviously, but the little stuff is, I mean, it's the quirks. It's the stuff that makes you quirky. That's what I do. Again, this is what I tell myself. I am no expert, people. This is just the things I tell myself when I'm going to bed at night, worrying about whether or not I've screwed my kids up. We shall find out. Stay tuned. A couple more years. We'll find out how my kids are feeling about me. Today is a good day. They like me today. So, you know, it's an ever waiting game.
It's a win.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, we will wrap it up, But tell everyone where they can find you if they want to follow you on Instagram, or if you have any other social profiles, then you can let them know and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I am primarily like active on Instagram. It's ShelbC08 is my handle. And I'm on TikTok, but not very much. So you don't need to go there. But yeah, Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining in. This is fun.
All right. Thanks, Mary. It was so fun.
Of course. Another episode down and way more to go. But thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support this podcast, I would love for you to subscribe. I'd love for you to share it with others and post about it on your own social media, or leave a rating and review. I cannot tell you how helpful and how appreciated those things are for me. Of course, to catch all the latest from me, you can follow me over on Instagram at The Very Merry Life, over on TikTok, The Very Merry Life. And even if you wanted to check out my monthly newsletter, you can do so by subscribing over at theverymerrylife.com. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned for more honest, raw, real chit chat. I have some amazing moms lined up coming on, and shit's going to get fun. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be good.